Hi, welcome to the onboarding webinar. Today you've got me, Becca, and we've also got Laura from the Criterion team here as well. So today we are doing the onboarding webinar, so welcome aboard. What we're going to go through today, we're going to give you some background on what onboarding is, what it looks like in the organisation, why it's important, what successful onboarding looks like, the benefits and also the implications if you don't have a structured onboarding process in place. We're also going to introduce the new Criterion Onboarding Report and go through how this can help you and your organisation. And we are going to discuss what's in it, so the model it's based on and the 4 key areas that Criterion has pinned down as successful to onboarding over their 25 years of experience in the field. We're going to go through application, what it looks like in terms of the report and its graphics themselves. And we're also going to go through the benefits of using the Criterion Onboarding Report. So I'm going to start off by giving you a definition of onboarding. So onboarding refers to the mechanism through which new employees acquire the necessary knowledge, skills and behaviours to become effective members of the team. So this is done by means of things like providing information, training, mentoring and coaching throughout the transition. And it's not just an introduction to the role, it's more the process of integrating a new employee into the organisation. It has quite a few main objectives, including making sure the new employee has the ability and understanding to contribute to the role, increase their comfort level in the role, the team, the organisation more generally. It also links quite strongly with retention of staff, so onboarding has a link with reinforcing a new employee's decision to stay with a company. We're going to touch on that a bit more later, along with the enhanced productivity and employee commitment and engagement as well. So generally speaking, onboarding can be described as a combination of activities to prepare, orientate, integrate and engage employees right from the get-go, so right from job offer. I'm going to pass over to Laura now, who's going to give you a bit more background on what poor onboarding or a lack of onboarding looks like in the workplace.
Yeah, so just give some background behind onboarding and some of the common challenges that organisations might face when hiring new employees, as well as some of the potential implications of overlooking the importance of onboarding in general. So just to give some background, research has shown that 81% of HR professionals feel that they need to update their onboarding process. They feel that it's lacking in some way and they don't apply enough focus to it. With as many as 22% of organisations actually spending no money on onboarding at all. That just shows a real sort of lack of awareness and importance and focus on onboarding. This demonstrates the general need for onboarding and with many organisations having little structure in the way that they onboard new recruits. So one concern regarding the potential implications of not getting this process right is that new recruits commonly report having poor and inconsistent relationships with their line managers. So the first 90 days have proven very crucial in building rapport with their new line manager as such. And this can have real negative effects on the individual's experience at work and their opinion of the organisation if this relationship isn't formed in the early days. Further to this, many organisations will see high levels of staff turnover within the first year of an employee joining. So considering the average cost of hire in the UK is estimated at around £5,000, this can have some huge financial implications. So obviously you've got the costs of things like recruitment agency fees, cost of time management, interviewing candidates, advertising for the position, as well as the impact that it has on the other employees within the organisation, having that absent colleague. Further to this, onboarding provides a great opportunity to use some of the information gathered during the selection process. So often the new recruit would have gone through a thorough recruitment process, which might have included psychometric testing, and all of this information generally gets neglected once they actually start in the role. So onboarding offers a great opportunity to use the insight gained from these materials to better inform the onboarding process and make them feel welcome within their new organisation. Okay, so just going to move into some of the benefits of onboarding.
So you're back to me now. So I'm going to talk a bit about the flip side of what Laura's just been discussing, so the benefits of onboarding. So we touched on it briefly earlier. One of the major benefits is improved employee engagement. So companies that invest the most time and resources into onboarding enjoy the highest levels of employee engagement. What does this look like in practice? Well, employees that are engaged prefer to take an active involvement in the role. They have a vested interest in the company. They're keen, they're motivated, they're more engaged in the role as a whole, committed to the company. They're more willing to do things like get involved in self-development, and they're generally more happy. And what this looks like is higher levels of productivity, which moves me nicely on to point number 2. So increased productivity. Organisations with effective onboarding are able to improve time to productivity ratios. Onboarded employees gain full proficiency 4 months faster on average, is what one study has shown. So organisations that boast a structured onboarding process tend to experience employees new to the role who pick up the role quicker. They can do things like better manage their time, they're quicker and more effective, more efficient workers, can get the job done quicker basically, but to the same level that's expected by the organisation. So another statistic on this, effective onboarding can improve employee performance by up to 11.3%, research has shown, which is huge when you translate this into worker output. So if you're looking at this in terms of profit, loss, kind of turnover in a company, that translates to a huge amount of money and revenue for an organisation. The third point is based around support for new recruits. So those organisations which have a structured way of welcoming people into the team, so things like meetings with line manager and new employees early on, and then regular meetings during the first few months of employment, just to check in and see how they're getting on, check progress, things like that, has been shown to have really positive impacts. And the onboarding process needs to kick in early for these benefits to be reaped. So this enables supportive relationships to be developed with the line manager early on. And on the flip side of that again, poor manager-employee relationships are notoriously quoted as one of the main contributors to staff turnover, which leads me on to point number 5, reduce staff turnover. So employees that go through structured onboarding are 58% more likely to stay. So that's just a statistic to put into context what Laura mentioned earlier about the cost of hire and the benefits of having someone stay with a company. Finally, it's improved self-awareness. So a key to successful onboarding was helping employees better assess their strengths and weaknesses and see how they fit with the organisation. So this links back to the point of early line manager, new employee meetings following hire, in the form of an exploration discussion where you can go through working styles, expectations, preferences, just set them up so they're ready to go from the offset really. We'll touch more on that later as well, and how the onboarding report that Criterion Partnership have designed goes hand in hand with self-awareness. So passing back to Laura, who's going to go into more detail about the Criterion onboarding report itself.
Yes, I'm just going to begin to introduce you to our onboarding report here at Criterion and some of its key features, which can help your organisation and support you in onboarding new employees. So what the onboarding report does is it utilises vital information gathered during the selection process, and in this instance, it uses the information gathered from the individual when they went through a personality questionnaire on COAST as part of the recruitment process. This works for both our off-the-shelf Criterion personality questionnaires, as well as any bespoke questionnaires that you might have designed yourself using the CAL library. So it's incredibly flexible, so it can contain any sort of scale selection that you might have previously set up. Alternatively, of course, you can have them sit the questionnaire subsequently to joining the position and use it then there on in. So using this information, we're able to gain an insight into their personality and their likely approach to work, so what motivates them at work, what drives them, what they value at work. So the report's designed in a way that helps the line manager to build a rapport with the new employee by gaining a greater understanding of how the individual might approach various work challenges and areas of work, and where they might require a little more support at first, and those areas where they might best excel. So it really helps form that relationship with the line manager earlier on. So as Becca was saying, having that exploratory discussion to go through the profile and spend the time getting to know the individual and how they can best be supported within their new role. So the report itself contains advice and guidance on how the line manager can best appeal to the new recruit style, values and motivational drivers. So it's all about making it about the individual and their preferences at work. They can then use this information to find the best way to integrate the new recruit into the team and sort of best assign them to projects and place them where they're best suited. So it also goes over the employee's strengths and highlights areas where they might best excel at work. So it's a really positive field report which really shows where the individual, where their preferences are and what they enjoy about work and what motivates them. So yeah, as Becca was saying previously, it's great for self-awareness as well. So in having these conversations, the line manager can really work together with the new recruits for them to gain a better understanding of themselves and where they see themselves at work and what sort of projects they want to get involved in joining the firm.
So now we're going to take a look at the Criterion Onboarding Report in all its glory. So you can see on the screen, there's a couple of screenshots, with the one on the left being the front page. So all of the Criterion News Suite reports have a nice graphical cover to them, with the onboarding vote being representative of the onboarding process. So you can see on the front it says who the report can be used by. So in this case it's the new recruit's line manager. You can actually use this report and provide it to the new recruit, but we wouldn't recommend doing so unless you've had the exploration discussion that we've mentioned a few times already, just because this will provide a bit of context to the new recruits and give them a basis on which to act on the points made. You wouldn't really want to give it to them kind of blind, because they wouldn't necessarily have the grounding and the background understanding of what's discussed and how they could use this going forward. So the report describes key results from the new recruit's personality profile, and it's based on 4 key areas. So interaction, stimulation, reward and environment. They're all colour-coded throughout the report, so it's nice and easy to pick up key information when you're eyeballing it, and we're going to come back to those in just a moment. The second page of the report, which is quite wordy and isn't screenshotted on the screen, I'm just going to mention briefly. It's a very useful page on understanding the report, so it gives you a bit of introduction to the report that Laura's just gone through on the previous slide, tells you applications of it and where you might be able to use it. It also lists important points that you should bear in mind when interpreting any narrative report that's based on personality. It reminds you of key things such as that it's a self-report measure, there aren't any rights or wrongs to personality, and personality is not a fixed entity. It also provides you with some information on where you can find further information about your new recruit in the sense of other narrative personality profile reports. So going back to the 4 sections of the report, you can see that they have nice graphical images to go alongside them, and they are centred on different aspects of personality. So if we start with interaction, this is based on the people aspects of the job, so interpersonal style and how this shapes how we work with others. So it focuses on traits such as listening, if someone has a preference for listening over talking, competition or collaboration, if they're a caring person, basically anything that's to do with working with other people and working in like a communal kind of team environment. Stimulation, on the other hand, is more to do with thinking and cognitive processes. It's more focused around tasks that we would find stimulating, focuses on things like if we're rational or decisive, if we like practical elements of tasks, perhaps if we might be optimistic, more so than pessimistic, all kind of things that are to do with stimulating and our work preferences. Reward is different again, so that's to do with motivation and the kinds of work that we find fulfilling. So what makes us get up in the morning, what do we really look forward to in terms of tasks and our role. So do we value things like status? Are we a particularly striving individual? Do we like to maintain focus on one task at hand, or are we happy to dabble in and out of different tasks as and when they arise? Friendship's another one that's also encompassed by this one. So if we find and value friendships in the workplace, particularly of value and rewarding. Fourth and final, but absolutely not least, is environment. So that's based around culture fit. So how well would we cope with change? If it's a progressive organisation, are we happy for it to be kind of all go, all change, looking for improvement consistently, or do we prefer something more stable? Do we like order, or are we happy working in perhaps a slightly more chaotic environment? Humour, or do we prefer something more serious? And then other traits such as calm, can we remain calm under pressure, and resilient as well. So that's just a quick overview on the 4 areas. Subsequent pages of the report go into those in more detail, and Laura is just going to give you a bit more information about those now.
Yeah, so on the next page of the report, we cover the individual's strongest preferences and tendencies across their personality profile. This is in relation to the 4 areas that Becca just covered, and provides you a very clear summary of some of the key information from the report. So it pulls in 2 traits from each of the 4 areas which show their strongest strength of preference. Yeah, it highlights the areas which might be of most interest when exploring their profile further, and might sort of ground sort of focus for your exploration discussions with the individual. On the next pages of the report, we go into much more detail about the scales contained within the questionnaire. So we provide narrative and advice in relation to each of the scales contained within the personality questionnaire for the line manager to use when onboarding the individual. So just having a closer look at this. So here you'll see each scale displays a score. This uses a 10-10 scoring mechanism, with both ends of the scale being scored at 10. So strengths are reported at both ends of the scale, with greater flexibility demonstrated with middle scores. So for example, methodical and creative represent 2 opposing ends of the same scale, with some scoring 10 on methodical, whilst others might score 10 on creative. So the narrative within the report uses easy to understand language, which means that it can be used by those who are not trained in test use, as previously covered. So it's specifically targeted at line managers. So it's really easy to interpret information, and the scoring is clearly outlined within the narrative of what it means. So as touched on previously, the report narrative offers advice and guidance on how the individual can best be motivated at work, where they might require extra support, and how the line manager might best appeal to their working style and values. And you'll see that the box on the right there just sort of summarises some of the key advice points, just for sort of clarity of information. So that's everything covered for our webinar. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to send them through the chat. I know we've got a couple of colleagues monitoring that, so I'm happy to answer any questions if we see any pop up. But if not, feel free to send them through to us after the webinar, or give us a call anytime. Just get in touch with those.
And you can join us next week for the Team Strengths Report webinar, which is the next in our Friday series of webinars. It'll be Criterion consultant Laura Harrison running that, and that's at 11 next Friday. Yeah, thanks very much for joining, and we hope you found it useful.
Thanks.